5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're at Ground Zero with Don Ethan, Bill Leaders, and Ron Trachtenberg.
Good evening and welcome to Ground Zero. Tonight we'd like to bring you, as we hope to in each show, a provocative topic with guests to talk each on a different and opposing side to bring education to the community about the topics that are relevant today. Tonight we're going to talk about gun control, about gun violence, about gun registration, and the issues they play both in crime and in constitutional rights. On my right is Jim Buckmaster from the Madison Area Citizens Against Crime. Jim is going to be talking some about the local Madison ordinance and what's being done at other levels. To his right is Ron Trachtenberg, one of our co-hosts, who will be with us each week. To my left is Sue Wallinger from the Citizens Against Handgun Violence, who worked with the groups that were working against the handguns and for the handgun control in Madison. And to her left is Bill Leaders, the news editor of Isthmus, and again, one of our regular co-hosts. Welcome, all of you. Jim, would you tell us a little bit about your background and what you believe?
Well, my background professionally is in the automotive arena, 30 years in business in the Madison area, and I've been involved with a number of the local community service projects, working with teenagers in schools and providing work credit programs. As far as the gun issue, my view is that people are in desperate need of being held responsible for their own behavior, and that violence is a behavior problem. And until we address that behavior, because there's an unlimited number of implements that can be misused, that until we address that behavior and address it effectively, we are not going to curtail the level of violence and the amount of violence that occurs.
But it seems to me that that would be the same argument that we wouldn't go after drunken driving. If until we curtail all of the problems, we don't address any of them, wouldn't seem to make any sense.
No, what I said is we need to address the behavior, not in other words, we don't outlaw alcohol, we don't outlaw cars, and we don't outlaw driving.
But we license them.
We do license cars because they're driven on public facilities and public roads, that's true.
But we even license cars that are just for fun.
If it's not driven on a public highway, it does not have to be licensed. Okay.
Do you believe that any guns or any ammunition ought to be illegal, inappropriate, licensed, registered?
Yes, I believe the Firearms Act of 1934, which very, very strictly controls all automatic firearms, period. I believe that's firmly in place. It's very well policed, and it has extremely strict regulations. I think that's a very good one. I also believe that concealed carry permits should be a function of a licensing process in the state.
What about armor-piercing bullets?
They are already federally controlled, and...
But controlling is as far as we need to go.
Well, their access is limited to law enforcement and military use. I'm not sure what you would do to related to violence beyond that.
I think we misunderstand whether or not they're available. I'll hold judgment on that until we get a little farther along. Sue, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your position.
Well, grew up in the Midwest, moved to Madison about 4.5 years ago with my husband and family. What brought me to the issue, I would say, is part of being a mom and worrying about the safety of my son, who at the time was about 5 years old, about the time you start wandering away from home and going to friend's house, and you lose a little bit of that control, as all parents know. And knowing that many of the people that whose homes he was going to, while they were very nice people, had guns, and I wasn't comfortable with how responsible they may have been as to where these guns were kept. I would say my major concern comes from a public safety standpoint. I'm more concerned about that person who is accidentally shot, the 5-year-old who's accidentally shoots the 6-year-old, or the spouse who in anger shoots somebody because the gun is available, or suicides. And I think suicides is a big problem that has been ignored somewhat, I think, in the debate.
But if you have irresponsible parents, and you want to legislate guns to prevent people from being irresponsible, why wouldn't you include steak knives? I mean, your kids can do just as much damage, a spouse can do just as much damage.
Right. Steak knives have a purpose. You
So
know,
do guns.
obviously to cut your steak.
Right, but so do guns.
The purpose to have a handgun, any purpose of sport shooting or whatever, to me, is outweighed by the...
What about protection? The purpose of protection?
The statistics show that you are more likely to be injured, you or your family, with a handgun in the house. I can't dispute that there are cases where at times people have been able to successfully defend themselves or members of their family, but statistically it happens less than you or your family members getting hurt.
But you're saying that people ought not to weigh those risks, look at ways that they can mediate those risks themselves, rather we just ought to take the choice away from them.
I don't see any reason why a person needs a handgun.
Okay. You don't see any reason you need one?
I don't see any reason why anyone needs a handgun.
Okay. Bill, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, my perspective on it is, well, I think we need to put on the table what has passed in Madison in early December. 4 gun ordinances, gun control ordinances passed that deal with very specific areas and types of weapons. And I think some of the questions I have that you raised approach things from a very general perspective, whereas these were very specific ordinances with specific purposes. There's an ordinance that prohibits what's called barbed bullets, a category of weapons that is regarded as particularly pernicious. There's a ban on short-barreled...
Let's take them one at a time. What do you think?
Revolvers.
What do you think about barbed bullets?
Well, the ordinance, first of all, is one of the most poorly written ordinances I've ever seen.
Let's take the ordinance.
Let's just go on. Let me say 4 things. Let's get into the meat of this thing, because the meat of this thing is those ordinances, as a practical matter, won't mean a tinker's damn about some of the things that Sue mentioned. They won't prohibit suicides. They won't prohibit accidental shootings. They won't prohibit one spouse from knocking off the other spouse either accidentally or intentionally. And they won't prohibit kids from getting into trouble.
I disagree for the very reason that we haven't gone through the list yet.
We get the last 20 minutes. Tell me about barbed bullets.
Well, what they are referring to, the way the ordinance is written, it says any bullet designed to expand on impact, forming evenly shaped projections that extend beyond the original diameter of the bullet. First of all, they don't define impact. I could shoot virtually any bullet at the targets I shoot at all day long. None of them would ever expand doing anything. Therefore, apparently those bullets are okay. I could present, and I've already talked to the city attorney's office about this, a number of different samples, and they tell me, we can't tell you what's not acceptable and what is. And then when they talk about bullets that expand beyond their original diameter, that is the very purpose, and it's what they're banning is the very type of bullet that the DNR says must be used in most hunting applications. So it's, as far as...
Those are the bullets that have the biggest chance of killing you, right? Or killing a deer. Killing a person, killing a deer. Because once it gets inside, it just goes all over.
Well, no, that's not true. What it does is it expands beyond its original diameter so that it distributes the energy that it contains over a greater area, and it makes a larger wound channel. The bullet, as you were describing it, would disintegrate. That would be called a fragmentary bullet, and those types are in the category of Army and law enforcement only.
And this ordinance does nothing to outlaw bullets that expand. It's specifically talking about the ones that expand around with the barbed edges that seriously wound the health professional as well as the person
Read the
who
last
gets...
line of the paragraph.
Why don't you read it for us?
The definition for barbed bullet, is that what you're referring to?
Why don't
Okay.
you show us what you mean? In the meantime, Bill, we want to go back to you with the list after we get this definition.
Okay.
You'll have to go.
Okay, barbed bullet means any bullet that is designed to expand on impact, resulting in the bullet having evenly spaced, pointed, sharp hook or barbed or other similar projections that extend